Hi pushers, this video contains the lecture for Chapter 8, Creating a Republican Culture. Let's begin with this first section, the capitalist commonwealth. First, let's begin with identifying what is a capitalist or capitalism. An economic system in which investment and ownership of the means of production, distribution, and exchange of wealth is made and maintained chiefly by private individuals or corporations. So basically, that all financial operations are in the hands of private individuals, not state run facilities or institutions. A commonwealth, if you've known from the past, is basically a small community, right? So in this case, is how a small community can improve and push forward the financial operations that will benefit the community. So first, let's begin with the ideologies of republicanism. So to begin, you have republicanism with simple ideologies or ideals. First, it's focused on the importance of civic virtue and political participation. Also, to be aware of the dangers of corruption uh, and also the benefits of a balanced constitution and a rule of law. So, in simple terms, basically, that Americans at this time believe that its government should help them out in expanding their economic success and their financial success. So, this entails, right, setting up banks, just like if you remember when one of the fears of the establishment of the first national bank by Alexander Hamilton was that it will create this boom bust cycle that Americans will be prone to. So Americans demanded the establishment of banks because they felt like that's what they needed to be able to start business ventures. As a business owner, right? If you have or an inventor, right? You have money, you have an idea for an invention, but you don't have the means to make that happen. You need to find people to invest in your idea. Maybe an entrepreneur who is willing to fund that money or is willing to take out a loan to make your invention happen, and therefore winning some money when that idea produces profit. So a, a big issue with the establishment of loans is that it all it's all like credit. You're accumulating it, and there's going to come a point where you need to pay that debt. And so when you don't pay that debt, then becomes a problem for the state, for the government. So the Jeffersonian Republicans actually were aware of those dangers of having a debt in the national bank. So therefore, they were very they pushed back on the creation of the national bank. If you remember, Alexander Hamilton received a lot of pushback from Thomas Jefferson and James Madison when talking about the national bank. And so when Jefferson Republicans took control of Congress, they eventually stopped the charter for the national bank in 1811, but eventually resumed in 1816 when national Republicans actually had taken control of Congress. If you remember, Jefferson Republicans or Republicans um, eventually split into two factions: the Jeffersonian Republicans and the National Republicans that were more like that had more in comparisons to Federalists. The dangers of a boom bust system eventually became a reality in the Panic of 1819. This is considered probably the first actual Great Depression or the first financial crisis in American history. It did last a little bit, about 2 years, but it did create problems for our financial institutions. So the causes of the Panic of 1819, well, some attributed to the Napoleonic Wars of the repercussion of those wars. It The real reason is really the um, dubious actions and policies of banks, especially of the second national bank. And so these practices that existed were the printing of money without really having any kind of collateral to it, just basically giving loans to anybody, especially giving loans to farmers that were trying to buy very expensive land. So this is in comparison to 2008, when banks were giving out loans to homes to anybody. Anybody could go to a bank and say, "I want to buy a house," and they would make it happen. They would buy you. They would set you up with what's called a variable interest loan, which means that the interest on your loan will fluctuate. What you're looking for really is to get a fixed interest rate loan, where the interest rate is set for the amount, for the duration of the loan. So because of the lending, or giving loans to anybody to buy a home, we eventually saw the financial crisis of 2008, a recession, right? The 2008 recession. And so that is the same practice of giving out loans, lending out money to people that had no collateral. And especially because the national bank, you're handing out loans to individuals that are not going to pay for it, then you eventually have to eat up that debt, and then eventually becomes part of the national debt. So this eventually is an example, right? It's an example of the this very dangerous capitalist business cycle. And so for many Americans, this is something that is common, right? That we have our highs, our really good times, but then we have our really lows. And so typically it is said that it is a 10 to 15-year cycle that when this takes place. So this is all right, an issue for a lot of Americans. While we benefit from the banks and providing loans, letting people become entrepreneurs and expand their business, having these businessmen even become international, that becomes an issue when we do not take care of the loans, and who, and be careful of who the loans are handed out to. Here in 1820, and what you begin to see is the start of the first industrial revolution in the United States, where you see the movement of manufacturing in homes to actual factories. So many Americans at first made a lot of household items at home, and now are selling them from factories. So one of the things that takes place is that there's the, it was created a nationwide rural networks of basically of shopping, and so because most people could not go to the cities to go buy, there was a peddler, a person who eventually went from town to town selling your household items, whether it was kitchenware, whether it was tables, chairs, clothing, whatever. And so you really see a change. You really the start of somewhat of a first industrial revolution. A lot of people now are moving into factories. They choose a water power mills to run their power, right? And as you can see, a lot of people are just changing the ways they used to do things to more modern way. Farmers are going to change from growing crops to actually raising livestock to sell the products like cheese, butter, milk, the meat, cowhide. So all this is exchanged, right? Now it's becoming a part of business, and now farmers are going to need wage laborers to as they're increasing, as they're expanding as business people. And as you can see in this picture, you see a peddler showing, the different products. And he would come into the house and show you clothing, blankets, and so on, right? I carry a little cart so you could, buy a broom or a basket or whatever you needed. That was all part of the business. And again, the artisans are gonna try to expand into factories to make more products. And same thing with the mills, the water power mills. You see this is a water wheel. As water runs, it spins a wheel and eventually is moving other mechanisms inside that is powering the actual the actual factory. Just as improvement was taking place in politics and economics, it also took some change in our transportation. So what you begin to see is that states are going to start issuing charters, permits to turnpike companies. These are turnpikes are like private roads. And so what it does, the roads are being improved, but there's a charge that companies eventually make to be able to use that road. That's what a turnpike is. An example of that would be if you're driven in the 91 from Orange County to Riverside County, the 91 expressways, that's a turnpike. That's something that people pay for to be able to use, and it's quicker, but it does cost. So by improving transportation, you're improving the distribution of products. People can move faster when the roads are better. So it's going to boost the economy by allowing you know people to carry their goods or people to travel. When if the roads are better, people can say, "Oh, I'm willing to go to town and buy my products because the road is smooth and easy." And so that's something that becomes a product of improving the roads. But one of the most the easiest and cheapest way to travel in those times was by water. And so the river boats were very were influential in the development of the country, especially in businesses. So one of the things that takes place is that a lot of people, a lot of investors are going to buy land that is close to rivers, to waterways. So in cities like Cincinnati, Chattanooga, St. Louis, you're going to see people buy and invest in those lands because that's going to cost more. That they can put up businesses because more people are going to be a part of it. So this idea of the building of canals, right, which is a man-made waterway, it allows for a movement and it connects to rivers, to lakes, and by providing that movement, right, you are creating a faster way for products to move, for ideas to move, for people to move, which eventually helps out the economy.